Perry with TrueDFS, and I think I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, share the screen, and then we'll restart this. Sorry about that. All right, it should be good to go now, and you're seeing the back end. So hi everyone, again, this is Adam Perry with TrueDFS. I'm going to go over tonight's NHL DFS slate. We don't have great contests. I thought and hoped that maybe we would, given that NFL is coming to an end and there's not NASCAR for another week and only a regular MMA slate on Saturday. But unfortunately, DraftKings upped the contest yesterday, but kept them small today to make room for NBA, which will be bigger most days going forward. So we'll make do with what we have. I'm still going to play in the 222. I still love NHL DFS, but we'll do a little bit of a shorter show because there's less games and smaller contests tonight. I just want to point out one piece of news before we get started, and that's that Max Pacioretty is practicing for the Leafs, and he's probably going to be in the lineup. And if you look at SaberSim right now and the other projection sources, they don't have Pacioretty in. So that's something we're going to have to consider. And the question is, if he is in, is he going to skate and play on power play one? Because if he does, he's going to be a really strong value for a team that's tied for the highest total on the slate with a bunch of other teams, but he's only 3K. And while he might not get a ton of ice time just coming back and being on their third even strength line, he will have some pretty strong upside if he gets power play minutes for a team with a pretty solid total relative to the rest of the slate. So that is something to keep in mind. I am not going to use Sheets' projections, which aren't out yet, and we'll just stick with the SaberSim since Goldie's got to get a hold of those changes as the rest of the industry does. So right now we'll just use what SaberSim has to go through what my process would be for building for that 222 67-man. I think it's a 2-entry small field contest. And the important thing about this is you only need to watch it once, right? You'll get an idea of what my process is like. And then hopefully if you watch it once, or if you do continue to watch these, you'll learn stuff going forward on how to carry out your own process. And this is the type of thing we'll do. So these games lock at 6 o'clock Central. This is the type of thing I would do at 5:45 Central, 5:50 Central, right before lock. But we are getting reps in. We are doing the work to hone in our process so that we're always ready to go right before lock and attack the slate with any news that comes in then, or changes with the sharpest projections right before post. So what I like to do is use the SaberSim play-by-play simulations to create lineups and then run a simulated contest. So take what I expect or SaberSim expects everyone to do in that field. And if they're right, then we get an idea of how precise our return on investment will be if we played the lineups we want to in that contest. So it's a high stakes, basically single entry contest. So I want to run lineups with that in mind. And we really don't need to hit the nuts or anything in such a small field. And so I would like to have to get less things right. So I like playing the larger stacks, the 5-mans, even the 6-man onslaughts, the 5-2s are the type of thing I like because then we only have to get about one thing right. Kind of like in baseball DFS, where you're stacking two teams in the 5-3 or you're doing the 5-2-1. I prefer the same thing here. We don't need to be perfect like we would in a larger field contest and trying to get more upside from different parts of the stack. So I'm just going to X those out and go with the 5s, the 5-2s, and the 6s in my builds. There's a lot of debate about that. You should hop in Discord and we can have that debate. There's a lot of people around the industry that do great work that have different opinions, and always love to hear them. So there's a lot of good stuff out there, but I'm going to build my way and capture as much correlation as I can and try and get the upside, while at the same time just having to get that one stack right, or the one stack with the two stacks. So I want these settings down a little bit because it's a smaller field. I'm going to go ahead and build. And then while that's working, I'm going to just set up the contest simulation. So if you're new to SaberSim, what this is doing is it's running play-by-plays of these games and creating projected fantasy points based on how the game's played out. And it runs those simulations thousands and thousands of times, and it gets an average. So let's let it build. We don't need to have it go all the way to the 5,000 lineups for our purposes, but we'll let it get as many as it can. This slate's really bunched up. I mean, you have, looks like almost every home team has like a 3.2 total, except for Florida, who's kind of got that meat grinder LA defense. Those are always lower total games against LA. But there's a lot of ways you could go. I kind of played around with hand building before I came on, and you could fit just about anyone. So ownership's really going to matter. Right now, I mean, SaberSim's got Palat as heavy chalk here, and he's a great play at the price. But we'll see, because there's a lot of other options. And then if Pacioretty comes in there at 3K, he's a very similar play to Palat, other than Palat being on the even strength one, but he's a little cheaper. So we'll see if the ownership really gets that high on these jersey guys. It might, but we will see. We could be certain that the simulations are probably going to fade jersey if they're that high owned, with a total so close to so many others that you could fit in for pretty similar prices. Let's just see. I mean, let's see. Just wonder, how small does the field have to get where we just want to play the highest projected 5-man stack? That's something I do sometimes in like the $100 14-man. Is just see if we look for the highest projected stacks, it's probably going to be jersey. Yep, you get jersey, you get some Toronto in there with the 5-mans, you get a couple 6-man New Jersey. So we built 5,000 lineups, and we're getting a lot of high projected New Jersey stacks. And let's see if we sort by Saber score on a small slate and a small field. It's going to give you a lot of that Toronto and New Jersey. They fit. They make sense. It'll be interesting to see once the Pacioretty thing gets sorted out by SaberSim and all the projection sources. And when our guys, Golden Sheets, get him in there where Toronto comes up, I mean, I imagine they become an even better play when you get Pacioretty at 3K in there. But we'll see. But now let's run some simulations and see based on ownership, right? So jersey is going to be pretty high owned. Now, if we run simulations of the contest, then you get the Torontos and even some Vancouver in there against Nashville, which makes sense. So let's see what those lineups look like. Yeah, so you get the whole power play, and then they throw in Ekman Larson. This may turn into like a Pacioretty later. Maybe not, though. Maybe just having the D-man works. We'll see. Here you got a nice Vancouver. It's highly correlated with the whole power play. And then you still get some exposure to Toronto with Nylander. You get the Sam Bennett. And the total onslaught of the 6-man. ROI is coming in 37% pre-flop. Our top lineup's ROI is 43%. If we went down to the 10th lineup, it's 30%. So, I mean, these are all bunched up. And there's variations in the sims, right? Because they have to see what happens in 10,000 simulations, or is it 100,000 simulations? And there could be a lot of variance, right? Sometimes this lineup maybe only wins the contest that it's simulated against, 3 times out of 10,000. And then you run 10,000 again and it wins 4 times. And then it becomes the highest ROI lineup. So, it's pretty reasonable to say you could play any of these top 10, and you could probably even go lower. I mean, if we went to the top 20, still get a lot of that, but then you get, Nashville options, Florida options. If we went to the 20th best lineup, I mean, it's still 27 sim ROI with a lot of variance. Let's see if we ran a simulation again where this lowest, this came in 20th. Let's see, with a 27% ROI. Here, we ran the simulations again and it had a 34% ROI. So there's a lot of variation in the simulations themselves. So keep that in mind, right? If there's something you prefer, you may not want to go down to it if it's really low ROI pre-flop. But if it's close enough and you say, look, I just really like Florida today, I don't think anyone's going to do it. And, they don't know XYZ and I know puck and, Florida's at home, they should have a higher total. Take a look. If you have that one Florida that came in our top 20 and yeah, it's got let's say a 27%. Here we got 3 in the top 20. So you get a 27.9% ROI. I mean, that's close enough, right? With the variance in the sims, you're well within your rights to do that. So that is my spiel. If the question is, who would we pick? I have no preference for Florida, and to me, it seems like Toronto is going to be pretty chalky, and so is Jersey. But we're playing in a small field. But it seems to me like the one that would get overlooked is like the Vancouvers or the Nashville, which is right up there in terms of total. So I'd be inclined to do something like that, to play the Nashvilles or even the Vancouver that's going to be pretty low owned. And you're giving up a half point of projected goals, but, it's hockey, it's high variance. And, what do you get for that trade-off? Well, you get a lot of reduced ownership, a lot of low price guys, and you're able to put in some higher price, nice projected stuff around it, like here, the Nylander and the Bennett. So I'm inclined to look at Vancouver and Nashville. If the slate were to start right now, things will change right before lock and throughout the day. So keep an eye on the news. And of course, if you want access to these play-by-play simulation tools for DFS, we have them for every sport through our SaberSim packages. And you get Golden Sheets' custom projections with them. So it's a really good deal, and it differentiates you from the other people that are using SaberSim. We also have premium content, and we have our Discord where we're always chopping it up. So come and join us. You could click the link below, try us out, TrueDFS.com, and good luck on tonight's slate in whatever contest you're playing.